All right, so I was born in Calgary, grew up in Winnipeg. My wife was from Michigan, so we didn't meet till we were in our mid-20s. It was a blind date set up. We went out to this town halfway between where I lived and halfway between where she lived. It was a magical night. She went home from that night, called her mom, said, "I just met the man I'm going to marry." I went home from that, and I said, "What just happened? I don't know what's going on." And I couldn't figure out these feelings. And so we only had about 10 days together, 10 dates together that summer back in 2020, 2000, back in 2000. Yeah, we have been married more than 4 years. Back in 2000, 24 years. So then she was headed off to France to do language school because she was going to be a lifetime missionary in Africa. And I left that summer to Bolivia because I was doing missions there in Bolivia. And I was gone for a few weeks, and I came back, and I was like, "Oh, this is not going to work. Life without Miston is not going to work." So I bought a ring and a plane ticket, and I flew to France. I said, "Can we talk?" And she said yes, which was wonderful. And then we came back to the States and we got married. And then I had been a youth pastor for a lot of years. She had been mission work for a lot of years. And we thought, well, if we are going to do a career in ministry, maybe I should get a little more education. I should go to seminary. So we packed up and moved to Minnesota and went to seminary there in Minnesota, as they say. And that's where we got our family started. And this is our family here. 4 kids. We struggled with infertility at the beginning, so we went through foster adopt, and we adopted this beautiful African-American girl named Sierra, and she just graduated from high school this last week, and we're very proud of her. She's doing so well. But then the infertility thing stopped, and we just cranked out 3 biological babies, one right after the other. And then we said, 4 is good. Then we had to figure out, are we going to move to Africa or are we going to move to Canada? Because I always thought, yeah, I'm cool with the States. I like living in the States, but I always kind of want to, I am such a stereotypical Canadian, right? Like, hockey, beer sometimes, I'm a very stereotypical Canadian. I always kind of wanted to move back and maybe start a church in Canada, my home country. And so we went to Africa and we prayed, "God, do you want us to live there?" The doors didn't seem to open. We went to Canada and prayed, but then the doors did open. So in 2010, we moved to Canada and started a church in downtown Vancouver, in the west end of Vancouver, near Davie Street or Robson Street or Denman Street. That was our area. And we had a unique strategy. I just kind of wanted to go into a neighborhood and love people and just see what happened. I didn't really want to start a church in the sense of a gathering. Like I didn't really want to collect Christians and talk to Christians. I just wanted to be out in the neighborhood. All these cliche sayings, right? Don't go to church, be the church. Intentional in the rhythms of everyday life. All that stuff. And that was. You guys know a few of these statements, okay? So this was me, and to a core degree, right? And so we just moved into that neighborhood, and we had some wonderful days, some wonderful times. We did the D-Wilk 3-on-3 for free street hockey tournament. We did Human Hungry Hippos. We did Sunshine for Seniors. We did camp. We did the Coho Bon Voyage. We just did any excuse for a party. We basically lived at the park. There's one big park in the West End. We basically lived there. We hung out there. We just did, and At one point, I could not walk down Denman or Davie Street. I couldn't walk more than 30 steps without meeting somebody that I knew, that I could talk with. And that was our life. And there were some wonderful aspects of that life. But there were also some messy and complicated and tiring parts of that life. And I think one of the things was poor planning on our part. In some senses, we just were like, we're just gonna trust God, and we're just gonna go, and we're just gonna see what happens. That was the plan. Well, what about this, and what about that, and what about this, and what about that? And well, I don't worry about those things. I'm just going. And so that caused some struggles. And then also, that neighborhood is known for gay activism. And we ran into the wrong end of that. And there was some very, very angry gay activist people that had been hurt by Christians in the past. And we looked like the person that smacked them in the mouth. And even though we were as good as gold and lovely, it didn't matter. They wanted us dead. And that hurt. That was very, very difficult. And then when you have a small church, our church was never very big, and it was small. We didn't even have a gathering space for most of the time. We just met in our house, met at the park, met wherever we could, met at the beach, didn't matter. Just a small collection of people, mostly non-Christian. And then we had a series of mental health challenges in a small church. So when you have like 20% of your church population that have severe mental health challenges, how's that going to work, actually, to grow and build momentum and all of this stuff? It was just a challenge. And then our philosophy of ministry really pushed Christian people away. You're like, oh, shoot, should have rethought that. But basically what I was really on about is saying, look, we're supposed to be in this neighborhood. We're supposed to be present and available and helpful. It's not about the Sunday gathering. I actually don't care about the Sunday gathering. We're supposed to be in the world. Like, that's our thing. And if you want to come with me, come. I'm happy to have you along. And if you want discipleship, walk with me. I will disciple you. But what ended up happening is a lot of potential people who wanted to be part of our church would be like, yeah, this is great, Dennis. I love the vision, but when are we meeting for church? Like, when is our Sunday gathering? Well, it might happen. It may be. And people are like, we'll pray for you. we'll hold you up in prayer. And so it ended up kind of pushing people away. And then the other big factor was housing insecurity. How many of you know that there's a housing crisis in Vancouver? Have you heard? You've heard about that? So we got rent evicted, or were forced to move. I think it was 4 times in 8 years. That's pretty hard to throw down stability when you have 4 kids and you don't even know where you're going to live. And so that really hurt too. And so all this added up to weariness. And then I had another problem. Your eyes go, not another one. The problem was faith upending doubts. This is something I've struggled with for like most of my life. I'll get excited, I'll believe about Jesus, and then I'll be like, what am I doing? Is this really true? Am I an idiot? Like, come on, Dennis. And I have this internal angst about faith. It's pretty hard to be a Christian leader when that's you, right? It's pretty hard. Somebody comes in, I just need to believe, Dennis. Well, I can't help you right now because I'm having a low faith day myself. So that was tough. And then COVID hit, and then our denomination had this massive implosion. And so without money, and without the opportunity to be together, and burnt out and losing my faith, we pulled the plug on our dreams. And so at age 46, in the midst of a pandemic, I had to find a new career. And I found out that not too many people in Vancouver are interested that you have a master's degree in theology and can know Greek and Hebrew. like not too many. That wasn't an impressive resume for a lot of people. So I had to get a job, figure it out. And so 133 resumes later, I landed a job on the downtown east side as a building manager for the Veterans Memorial Housing Society. And so I manage the building. I do everything for this building. It's 133 guys, 55 plus men's building. If you've blown up your life with fentanyl, with drugs, with alcohol, or crime, however you've managed to destroy your life and you ended up there, we'll take you in. And so that's what I do now. And so I live on Main Street. This is every day for me, every single day. I go from Main Street to Alexander. I walk by about, I would say, on average, 20 to 25 bodies. That's what they are. They're sort of alive, mostly dead. And then on Welfare Wednesdays, it doubles up to about 50 every single day. And a lot of the guys in my building struggle. Some of them are they're all older, so they've managed to survive. So they've figured out how not to kill themselves. And so the upside is it's good work in the sense that we've provided housing for people who desperately need it and who otherwise would be dead. So it is meaningful work, but it does weigh on you after a while. You're like, what is going on down here? Surely we can figure this out. But you just try to do the best you can. And so that's it. So that's our life. That's my new life now. This is what I've been doing for little over 3 3/4 years now. And so I do, I did talk a lot about how I don't care about the Sunday gathering. I care about being in the blah, 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 blah. Well, I got it now. I've got 133 people in my church. None of them have any interest in going to church. And I minister to them by providing them housing, hope, help, and honor. And so I guess I got what I wanted. Thankfully, my faith didn't die. And I decided to write about it. And so in February of this year, I finally published this book here, Escaping the Mortal Cage. And this has been a long, long project. And if you've ever had doubts or misgivings about your faith, or you know someone who does, I think this book's going to be very helpful. And Brett was instrumental. He was encouraging. He helped. He's even in the book, in the front, in the foreword of the book, your pastor writes this. Whether you are facing doubts, not wanting to face them, or desiring to help others face theirs, you will appreciate this book. Wilkinson writes with raw honesty and compelling stories. He raises important questions, and though it's an easy read, he doesn't give easy answers. That isn't the point. Amidst the confusing questions of life, love, and God, there is hope and beauty that is worth reaching for. Wilkinson has lived in the tensions and continues to persevere in faith. This book will help you and others do the same. If you want a copy of it, I've brought 8 copies. You can see me after to buy one, or you can get it on your ebook, Kindle. You can get it on Kindle, or if you're not a reader, I got it done on Audible. It's on Audible, so you can look it up on Audible. It's called Escaping the Mortal Cage, and hopefully that can be a help to you. So, we survive the ending of our church. We make it through COVID. We adjust to a completely different life. And then one of our 4 kids develops a deadly illness. And so we have spent the last 2 years of our lives trying to make sure that our daughter doesn't die. So that sucks. All the other difficulties we've gone through are absolute child's play compared to this one. They're nothing compared to this one. And so we have done what we can. And so my wife is a waterhead. It's okay. I've cried more these last 2 years than I ever have in my whole life. So I have written about it quite a bit. Don't look it up now. Look it up after the service. You can Google denswrestlings.ca. You can read A Monster Has Moved In. Just brace yourself. So, that is our story in a nutshell. How do I use this story to point you to Jesus? How do I do that? I'm going to make one point. There's one big idea that I want to communicate, and that is this. Make God's story the lens through which you see your story. Make God's story the lens through which you see your story. Lenses make a huge difference for how we see things. They really do. Like, I like to go on the seawall for quiet time. We live right by the seawall, right at the end of Falls Creek. And so I have a couple of benches, and I go sit on the bench, and there's the old casino. Have you ever been down there? The old glass casino where he's got these huge big pine trees and the water, and it's beautiful. And I sit there and I watch, oh, that's nice, that's nice. But I carry now in my backpack some binoculars. And I look up into those pine trees, and then when I look through the lens of the binoculars, the whole world changes. You see, there's 2 bald eagles up in there. And there's all sorts of creatures everywhere that you wouldn't normally see without those lenses. And the lenses change everything. The whole world opens up. So I see those pine trees and that old casino differently now that I look through these lenses. And when we see our life played out through the lens of God's story, then we begin to see life differently. But not for the worse, for the better. Things become more clear, more crisp, more true. And today I'm going to summarize God's story with 4 big ideas: beauty, brokenness, forgiveness, and hope. First of all, beauty. The story starts out with creation, right? God created the world, and it was what? It was what? Good. It was good. And so when God's story shapes our lives, we develop a great appreciation for life itself. We see beauty. And I want to point you to Jesus at this one. This was our scripture that we read at the beginning. One day, some parents brought their children to Jesus so he could lay his hands on them and pray for them. But the disciples scolded the parents for bothering him. But Jesus says, let the children come. Don't stop them. For the kingdom of heaven belongs to those who are like these children. And he placed his hands on their heads and he blessed them before he left. The innocence and beauty of these kids is the stuff of heaven. That's what Jesus said. Let them come. I know that Jesus enjoyed these little munchkins crawling all over him for a while. He did. He loved it. And when beauty is perceived in creation and in creativity, and that beauty is understood as coming from a good God, then what is the natural response of the human? If that's how you see life, what would be your response? When you see beauty or creativity or something glorious and you believe it's coming from a good God, what is the natural response? Yes, because what happens is you experience joy in that moment, and then you reflect that joy back up to God. That's not what humans do. That's only what you do if you see life through the lens of God's story, informing yours. And so this is what we do. We have joy and praise. And there's no doubt in my mind that Jesus reflected the joy of those children back up to God. He did. He did. And that's what we do when God's story informs our story. You know, a few weeks ago, I visited your church. And I sat right back there. And I was sad that day. I had a real sadness. And some kid, it might have been yours. I'm not sure which kid it was. I don't even know what kid it was. But I was sitting right where this guy is, right here. And And one of these little kids was playing with a truck or something, and he decided to rest his head on my leg while he played. I never met this kid. I didn't even know his name. I have no idea who he is, but he feels really comfortable around me. And I was just filled up with joy in that moment. I've got 4 teenagers, 18, 17, 15, and 14. They're growing up. They're going off. I miss those little kid days. I miss those days. You guys that are going through it, you're like, oh, why don't they? No. Enjoy every moment. Enjoy every moment of it. It's beautiful. And so I was just filled up with joy in that moment. And because I'm trying to see life through God's story, I said, oh, this is a gift from God. This is wonderful. And I savored that joy like a sweet chocolate or something. And then I reflected that joy back up to God. That's what we do. That's what we do. And so a prominent atheist once said this: the worst thing about being an atheist is you've got no one to thank. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. And what we believe is this: beauty and creativity exist not as random accidents, but as signposts of divine love. That's the lens through which we see life. And it's a game changer. It really is. All right, number 2, brokenness. Brokenness. In God's story, we also see brokenness as the real thing. It's not an imaginary thing. It's a real thing, though. It exists. There are divine rules that we are supposed to play by, and when we don't, we destroy ourselves, we destroy each other, and we destroy our world. That's what we see. That's what we believe. And so brokenness is not imaginary. It's not made up. It's real. And Isaiah 53:6, we look at it and we say, yes, that rings true. That rings true to my experience. All of us like sheep have strayed away. We have left God's path to follow our own. And as a result, we make a mess of things. So Christian people feel this. They know this. They believe this. Things are not as they should be. And it's not it's not for no reason. And so we're to blame for the messes that we make. And so Christians sit in this brokenness. We don't like how this makes us feel. Right? We don't like how our selfishness wrecks our relationships, or how our greediness pushes people away, or how our lust for power and control ruins and breaks the relationships, breaks up the good things that we do have. We don't like that. It sits rough in us. And so, now how do humans normally respond when things go sideways? What do we normally do? Blame. It ain't my problem, it's your problem. You know, we blame. What else do we do? Okay, we have guilt for sure, but so if we're gonna blame people, we're gonna feel guilty, what else? We're gonna get angry, we're gonna run away, we're gonna cover it up, right? What? Nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here, right? I'm covering it up. And what else do we do?
Pretend it's not there.
What's that?
Pretend it's not there.
Pretend it's not there, yeah. We justify our actions, right? Well, if this hadn't happened, and that hadn't happened, and that hadn't happened, and that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have done that. So what are you going to do about that? You know, so we justify, we blame, we hide, we cover it up. This is the natural course of human action when things go sideways. It's how humans roll. But when you have God's lens on you, when you're looking through your story, through God's story, that's not how you roll anymore. You don't blame, you don't justify, you don't cover it up. You accept it. You agree with Taylor Swift. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. At tea time, everyone agrees. You agree with Taylor Swift and God. You know, you take it. You take it. So just curious, when was the last time you sat in your brokenness and said, yeah, I'm guilty. Yeah. So what do we do with the brokenness? Is there a God-informed lens that delivers us from the darkness of our own ways? Is there? Huh? You think so? You think yes. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. It's forgiveness. Right? Isaiah 53:6, all of us like sheep have strayed away. We have left God's path to follow our own. Yet, the Lord has laid on him the sins of us all. And who's the him here? It's Jesus. Isaiah is pointing forward to Jesus. Jesus' offer of forgiveness is not some irrelevant Sunday school lesson. Look, sometimes I hurt other people. It's true. You know, with my daughter's sickness, I have in anger, this has made me very angry. I have in anger said some terrible things to people that I love. And I've created damage with my words as I've lashed out. My brokenness in the last 2 years is on full display. And I feel guilty about those things. I feel ashamed about those things. But Jesus says, look, I'm taking those things on my shoulders. You don't have to be crushed by the guilt and shame of those mistakes. You can give them to me. And when you actually believe that, there is a salvation that happens. There is a healing that happens. There is a release that happens. You see, guilt and shame crush us down. They destroy us. We're not meant to hang on to those things forever. Jesus says, I got this. And so I can accept that forgiveness and rise from the ashes of those mistakes and carry on, knowing that I'm loved and accepted, even though I'm imperfect. It's a game changer. And so sometimes other people hurt me. Sometimes other people hurt me. Early on in our church planting, a couple of Christians worked so hard to undercut everything that we were doing. They were strategic in their desire to ruin us. Christian people, what the hell? Is it okay? Sometimes I use language, maybe it's not okay. Thank you. Thank you. And then, not long after that, okay, I'll just say this. The gay activists went batshit crazy on us. They really did. And I got filled up with so much resentment and fantasizing of revenge. If I find a gay activist in a back alley and it's just the two of us, boom. And if I find that Christian who should have known better in a back alley, it's boom, boom. You know, resentment and revenge fantasy and bitterness. I had all of that. All of that. But, I mean, I could say I hated those people. I could say that. I was getting to there. But when God says, because I've forgiven you, you can forgive others. And when that becomes the lens through which I understand life, God's story shaping my story, when that becomes reality to me, then I remove my hand from the throat of the one who's hurt me. I do that. That's how it has to be. And so I do. Sometimes, many times a day. That's how it has to be. And so growing up in Winnipeg, rust is a problem. You're like, what? Just hang with me. The salt and sand used to clear the roads also rusts out the car. right? You know what guilt, shame, resentment, and revenge is? It's the rust that ruins the car. Okay? You're the car. That's you. If you hang on to guilt and shame because you refuse to let the forgiveness of Jesus wash you clean, then you rust. If you have someone who hurts you and you hang on to resentment and revenge and you let that eat you up, you rust. It ruins you. These four things, these four factors in your life ruin you. They rust you out. They ruin you mentally. They ruin you physically. They ruin you spiritually. Do the science if you don't believe the religion part. It's true. These things, they got to go. And Jesus is like the ultimate scrubby bubbles car wash who washes that grime and that salt and that slime off so you don't rust. So believe it and be free every single day. This is what it has to be. Okay. So the last one. Hope. Hope. Our greatest enemy is but an annoying fly, right? Then when our dying bodies have been transformed into bodies that will never die, this scripture will be fulfilled. Death is followed up in victory. Oh, death, where is your victory? Oh, death, where is your sting? Well, Samwise, good old Samwise. He's halfway through. He's seen one obstacle, one horrible thing after another. He stayed faithful to his task. He's done, and he's just, things are difficult. He's almost been killed by that giant spider. If you've ever read the movie or read the books or saw the movie, and this is what he says. But even as hope died in Sam, or what? Is not dead. But even as hope died in Sam, or seemed to die, it was turned into new strength. Sam's plain hobbit face grew stern, almost grim, as the will hardened in him, and he felt through all his limbs a thrill, as if he was turning into some creature of stone and steel that neither despair nor weariness nor endless barren miles could subdue. That's good writing. But listen, this is the shaping influence of a person who follows their story through the lens of God's story. You have hope at the end of the day. You still have hope. And when hope is gone or seems to die, it doesn't actually die, because the shaping principle, the shaping belief is hope at the end of the day. And so Samwise, he makes it through Shelob the spider. That rotten ring finally gets thrown into Mordor. Gollum goes with it. The evil king is destroyed. The bad wizard is cast off. And the king has returned. And Samwise Gamgee looks up from all of his troubles and he asks this question: shall all the broken things become unbroken? And the answer from the Christian view is what? Yes. Yes. And so in the darkness, in the despair, in the depression, in the sorrow, in the sadness, we do not ultimately despair. Through it all, we believe that we are not ultimately without hope. So disease, cancer, heartbreak, ruin, and even death can come. And they cannot dislodge our hope. Put the right glasses on. See life through the lens of these four things. Beauty. we believe it's real, and when we see it, we have joy, and then we reflect that joy back up to God in praise, and that gives us the fuel to keep going. But then we recognize our brokenness, and we stop trying to blame others and justify our actions and hide our sins. We sit in it, and we agree that we are guilty, and then we accept forgiveness for when we are guilty, and so then we don't have to live in guilt and shame. And then when people hurt us, we actually forgive them so we don't have to live in resentment and revenge. And then ultimately, through it all, the ups and the downs, we have hope. And this is the life of the Christian. And I want to live my life this way. This is how I want to live. I don't want to live any other way. Do you? Maybe you're here and you're like, oh, Christianity sucks. No. No, it doesn't actually. It's actually the only way to get through. Beauty, brokenness, forgiveness, hope shape your life around this, and you will be well. Amen.